What's growing on, gardeners? On today's video, I am going to share with you all the one thing that will destroy our vegetable garden above and beyond anything else. This one thing is responsible for most of the problems that we have in our garden, and I'm going to show you exactly what that is and what you can do to prevent the damage.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out my Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom apparel and gear.
And that one thing is persistent heavy rainfall. You heard me, there is nothing more destructive to most of the crops that we grow in our annual vegetable gardens than regular heavy rain. Here where I live on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, we just endured a 4-day rain event, and during those 4 days, we accumulated 3.41 inches of rain. Now, we've had a very dry spring and we are in drought, so for the greater good and the woods and the forest fires that have been popping up around us, it is a good thing for the region. But for my vegetable garden, it is not, and I need to act now before the devastating effects begin to set in. Since irrigation and water quality is so critical to farming and agriculture, you would think that rain would be a good thing for our vegetable garden. However, for most of the common cash crops that we grow today in our gardens, it is not. You may be shocked to learn that most of the fruits and vegetables we find in grocery stores are grown indoors in greenhouses, or they are grown in huge fields in arid climates like California and Arizona because it rains so infrequently there, it's almost like growing inside a greenhouse but outdoors. The fact is, rainfall does pretty terrible things to most of the crops that we grow in our vegetable gardens. It spreads disease, it splits, mars, and damages fruits, and it creates plagues of insect pests. If you look at agricultural regions historically around the planet, you will find that ancient societies grew their crops in mainly arid areas along fertile, freshwater river valleys. This allowed the growers to grow their crops in mostly rainless conditions, and then the irrigation could be controlled using the rivers themselves to irrigate the fields. These systems are still emulated today out west in arid areas of California and Arizona. In fact, if you look at Google Maps on a satellite view, you will notice that much of the farmland is located along the Colorado River out in the desert, and it is like that for a reason. If you think about it, this makes a lot of sense. Most of the annual crops that we grow are vines, herbs, and shrubs. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squashes, melons. These are not pioneer species. They are basically weeds that grew along the forest floors under the protection of dense forest canopies. As such, they did not adapt to grow out in the open and endure intense rainfall. The forest canopies protected them from the heavy rain. So when we plant out our garden out in the open, and they get dumped on by heavy storms for several days in a row, it ruins them. They have no tolerance for it, and it is one of the things that causes most of the problems with diseases, pests, and damaged harvests. Don't believe me? Just look at the bulk of the farmland that you will find east of the Mississippi River, where rainfall is a regular year-round occurrence. You will find that most of the farmland is dedicated to growing two things: grains and legumes, because they are ostensibly grasses, which are one of the few things that do really well in heavy rain. That is why the weeds grow so well in the summer in a really wet climate. Grasses flourish in rainfall and not much else. As such, you will find that most eastern farms are dedicated to corn, wheat, hay, and soy, basically all field grasses. The fruits and vegetables that we love most, well, they are grown primarily indoors in greenhouses and out west where the weather is dry, or on small local farms that can demand a higher price to offset crop losses caused by all this rain and humidity. We were blessed with a very dry spring here in the coastal Carolinas. Yes, you heard me, blessed by dry weather, at least according to my garden. So I want to take you through my new garden beds, show you how they are performing, and how I intend to rescue all these plants so they don't get sick from all that rain we just had. Today is May 13th, and I want to show you just how well everything is going so far in the garden. Of my initial 3 zucchini plants, I am getting really good fruit sets so far. All of them are pollinating very well despite the rainy weather, and I think probably within a week, maybe 10 days, I will already be picking zucchinis off of these 3 plants. Then next to that, I have my first bed of indeterminate tomatoes. And all of these indeterminate tomatoes are looking beautiful. They are all flowering profusely. They are free of disease. They are setting fruits. Look at that wonderful fruit cluster down there. And as you go lower and lower on the plant, you'll see back there, there is some really nice large beefsteak tomatoes. Again, even at the base of the plants, despite all of this rain, there are no signs of disease anywhere. Everything in this bed is just doing so well. And up front here, I also have 3 Japanese eggplants. These are, again, flowering profusely, no signs of disease, and I'm starting to get some big eggplant on there. This is probably going to be ready in only a matter of a couple of days, and we have plenty more where that came from. Again, lots of flowers and baby fruits forming. And we can see just as much success on this side of the tomato bed. Again, we can see lots and lots of fruits that are forming, lots of flowering up top, and again, no hints of disease at all. Ooh, look, there's a nice little cluster of fruits that are forming there. Then in this bed, we have our dwarf tomato project tomatoes. There are numerous varieties here, and again, these are all flowering profusely and looking great. Next to them, the regular leaves that you see here are various determinate varieties. These are generally earlier and once again, completely free of disease. If you see a little bit of white spray here and there, that's surround kale and clay to kind of protect them. Oh, because you see, look at that, I'm starting to get a couple of worms and caterpillars right there. So let's pick that guy off right there. And then as we look back here, we are seeing lots of beefsteak tomatoes, lots and lots of blooms. And you see, this is the problem that we get with all this rain. We're starting to get an explosion of caterpillars. That's one of the nuisances when you get days of rain, which is exactly why we are going to treat our plants after all of this, because we don't want them to get damaged by pests or by disease, because everything right now looks so lush and gorgeous. Look, these tomato plants are already close to 4 feet tall. And look, we have a friendly neighborhood ladybug right there hanging out. We're actually going to remove that ladybug because I'm going to spray those tomato plants later. So let's rehome him real quick. Okay, then we will go back to these dwarf tomatoes from the other side. We're seeing so many blooms and little baby fruits starting to form. And remember, it's only the 2nd week of May. Then we have our pepper plants right here. These are all hot peppers and they are beginning to flower pretty profusely. I'm going to have to stake them up because all those days of rain kind of beat them up a little bit, but they will recover just fine. Look at this overachiever right here. We already have some huge peppers on that pepper plant right there, and even more peppers on this pepper plant right there. Wow. Lots of jalapenos are forming. Peppers are so fun and easy to grow, and they produce pretty much before anything else. And then next to that, our last bed of indeterminate tomatoes is what you see right here. I have a lot of the cherry varieties in here to give them more spacing to vine out, but I do have a few beefsteaks stuck in there, and I'm starting to get pretty good pollination on these heirloom type beefsteaks, as well as getting some really good pollination on the cherry types. You'll see this one is setting fruit already. So everything for the most part is looking so incredibly healthy. We just have flowers and tomatoes everywhere. And again, there is no hint of disease on any of these tomato plants at all. And it's very important that we keep it this way because we do not want anything taking our harvest. We don't want any diseases progressing and slowing down our plants because we want to keep these as beautiful and productive as possible. Now, some of you may be thinking, Anthony, your tomato plants are so lush and beautiful and so far along for this time of year. What's your secret? Well, at least I hope some of you are thinking that. I mean, I think they look pretty good overall. And I really think this all boils down to three things. Number one, we just happen to be fortunate enough to have a very dry spring, which has suppressed diseases for the most part, so I can't really take credit for any of that. Number two is I built all new raised garden beds here, and I think it's a really superior design, and I sourced really high quality garden soil. So if you want to learn how I built these extra deep raised beds and how I filled them with good quality soil, I'll link to some videos down in the video description and above that will show you how to do that, because I'm really loving the design and I think it's made a big difference to how healthfully everything is growing. And the third thing may come as a surprise to you, and that is because I have virtually not pruned any of these tomato plants. Aside from removing the lowest few leaves underneath the first flower cluster around the time I transplanted them, I've let them grow mostly naturally. And I have been doing this for quite a while, and I have mostly found that, especially in humid, wet climates, the less you prune tomatoes, the better they grow. Throughout a decade of trial and error and honest evaluation, I have mostly found that pruning your tomato plants is one of the most effective ways to spread disease, and if you don't prune them, they tend to resist disease better. And that's because pruning stresses out the plant, and it creates open wounds in the plants themselves that makes diseases more transmissible, especially since you stress them out and you compromise their immune system. And then when you factor in the fact that lots of viruses and bacteria and fungi naturally fall on the leaves themselves, well, when you create an open wound, you're basically injecting pathogens into them. So I have found the less that you cut them, the better they tend to do. After all, tomato plants don't get pruned in nature. Now, you may be saying, well, what about airflow? Isn't airflow important? And to that, I would say largely no. Tomatoes are an understory forest species, so they adapted to very little airflow. There's hardly any airflow at all or wind inside a dense forest along the ground. I think the airflow myth has largely started because tomato plants get wet, and wetness causes all of the disease. So when your tomato plants are soaking wet, well, then they need some airflow to dry off. But aside from that, airflow is not really important if your plants are not getting wet at all. So that's why I'm building a roof above my tomatoes. I want to prevent them from getting wet. And at that point, there's really no reason to give them all that much airflow. Now, if you're growing things in a humid subtropical climate like me where we get lots of rain, you may be saying, well, I need to prune then because of the airflow issue. I still find that generally pruning causes more diseases in my climate than it prevents. So aside from during transplant pruning them down low to get the lowest leaves off the plant, I have mostly found the less you do to a tomato plant, the better they grow. The rules may be a little bit different if you live in a place where it never rains in the summer, but if that's the case, what do you really need the airflow for to begin with? But if you live in a humid climate like I do, it is only a matter of time until your tomatoes get some type of disease. Here in the southeast, you are pretty much guaranteed that all of your plants are going to be in fairly rough shape come July. So when we get big rain outbreaks like this, where heavy rain lasts for days, that is really the killer of our tomato plants. And they look so good right now, I need to do something right now so they don't get sick, because I'm telling you right now, if I don't do anything, in 2 weeks from now, they are all going to be freckled with blight and leaf spot. So, if your tomato plants are vulnerable to disease where you live, it is a good idea that you develop a fungicide spraying routine as soon as it dries out after big rain events like this. Now, it's supposed to be dry for 4 or 5 days now, and my tomato plants' leaves are dry, so now is the time when we want to apply a fungicide. And we have several options for this that are natural and can often be organic. So the gentlest option is to use something like this. This is a natural bacteria fungicide spray. It colonizes a beneficial bacteria on the leaves. And the theory behind a product like this is if you populate the leaves of your plants with colonies of beneficial bacteria, it will squeeze out all of the space so pathogenic fungi and bacteria can't colonize. Basically, you're taking up all the room and you're squeezing out the bad guys. Something like this is very gentle to use on plants. It's very low risk. It's probably safe around most insects. Of course, read the label, but this is pretty much the gentlest organic natural method that you can use. And if you don't have severe disease pressure and your heavy rains are somewhat infrequent, this is a great option. And as a point of reference, I'll place links to all of these different things down in the video description for your convenience. Now, if you have a place that has more significant disease pressure, or you're just having a really wet summer, another product you can use is wettable sulfur. This can easily be sourced organically, and it is both a natural fungicide and it also kills some pests like mites and things like that. So it's a combination natural organic insecticide and fungicide. You do have to be a little bit careful when using sulfur. You have to wait until sunset to spray it, and you can't mix it with any kind of oil because it can actually burn your plants in presence of oil. So when you pretty much commit to using sulfur, you kind of have to commit that sulfur is really all you're going to use, because when you start mixing it with other things, it can have negative consequences. And then the most powerful of the natural fungicides is going to be liquid copper. Now, this is not a purely organic product. It is natural but not certified organic. You can also get this stuff certified 100% organic. I'll link to these products down in the video description. Copper is the strongest of these natural fungicides, but it's also the most effective. And I've experimented with all of these other different fungicides over the years, and in my climate, it's just so bad that I've pretty much just resolved myself to using copper. Again, it's still a whole lot gentler than a lot of the other not organic sprays out there, but this is probably the most powerful and potent, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to use it after I get a heavy rain event like this. So I'm going to spray my plants using this nifty battery-powered 4-gallon backpack sprayer right here. This thing is absolutely awesome. If you're interested in it, I'll place a link down in the video description. You will not believe how affordable this thing is. And the first thing I'm going to add to this mixture is the liquid copper fungicide. Now, it's very important that you read the application instructions for the different things that you're going to spray. And for tomatoes, it works out to be about 1 tablespoon per gallon. So in this right here, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons because I am going to be filling it up completely. Now, at the start of this video, I was only planning on using copper fungicide, but because I saw all those worms forming at the bottom of my plants, I'm going to add in a natural insecticide. So for that, I'm going to use this pyrethrin concentrate. Pyrethrin isn't as effective against worms as something like spinosad or BT, but spinosad and BT are a natural bacteria that I probably can't combine with copper. They would probably react and the copper would probably kill the bacteria. And this is a natural chemical that's refined from the chrysanthemum. You can get natural pyrethrin or organic pyrethrin, and this specific one is applied at half a tablespoon per gallon. So I'll put 2 tablespoons in there. I can mix the pyrethrin with the copper because these are basically non-living chemicals, so they can be combined. You would not want to combine pyrethrin with any kind of natural bacteria or something like that. And now I am simply going to fill up this backpack sprayer to the 4-gallon mark. The reason why I like these backpack sprayers is it makes it much easier in order to get good coverage of the plant, because when you're spraying the plant, it is just as important to get up and coat the undersides of the leaves than the tops, because disease usually colonizes the undersides of the leaves first because sunlight disinfects the top. Most of your insect pests also lay eggs and colonize under the leaves as well to protect them from predators. So that's why these backpack sprayers really go a long way to help. So what I like doing is every now and again, I'll give things a little jostle and a jump like this in order to make sure I'm constantly stirring the stuff that's in the back. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to spray down the undersides of the plants and the tops of the leaves as best as we can. And it's also very important that we wait until sundown for this. We do not want to do this when the sun is out because, number one, beneficial pollinator insects are out when the sun is out, and bees and other beneficials tend to go away when the sun sets, but also because sun can sometimes react with spray and burn your leaves, and we obviously don't want that. So again, we are going to liberally spray down all of the plants, both the tops and the undersides of the leaves, with this spray mixture that we just made. Again, strong coverage is key. We want to make sure that we spray down the tops of all the plants, and then we also invert the sprayer and get really nice and deep down there to make sure that we get all of those nasty caterpillars and worms that are causing problems on the undersides of our plants, as well as things like beetles and leaf-footed bugs, stink bugs, shield bugs, and all of the other nasty things that often go after our tomatoes, our peppers, our cucumbers, and other southern crops, and other summer crops. And you want to spray these down, generally speaking, until they are wet and somewhat dripping. You don't have to necessarily overdo it, especially when using copper, because if you overuse copper, it can over time accumulate in your soil. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing because copper can actually be used by the plants as a micronutrient. So please, if you're going to use copper, make sure that you read the instructions and don't abuse it. They specifically tell you how many times a year you can use it and what the maximum dosages are. And the reason why they do that is because they run the calculation how much can drip into your soil that your plants can largely use. So it's there so you don't abuse the product. That's why I mostly recommend you do this after heavy rain events. If you want to develop a simple preventative fungicide spraying routine and you don't get a whole lot of heavy rain, it's probably best that you use that natural bacteria-based stuff because that has a lot less downsides than using a stronger fungicide like copper. But again, it is up to you. It depends on your climate. Believe me, I hate doing these spraying routines. I wish that I didn't have to. I mean, at the very least, it's time and money I wish I didn't have to spend on my garden. But if you live in a very difficult climate and disease is an issue, these are things that we unfortunately sometimes have to do. And at the end of the day, it's better to have a productive garden and get nice, healthy, homegrown food, even if you have to spray a few natural chemicals here and there, than it is to buy the stuff from grocery stores. So I will take stuff from my homegrown garden any day over the finest grocery store organic produce. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good when growing a garden. To be clear, this video is not a license for you to go out and start spraying your garden. I do not want to hear anybody say that because they saw me spray my garden, that means it's okay for them to go out and spray whatever they want. That is not what I want to accomplish with this video. The whole point of this video is I want to explain to you all why I believe plants get the majority of the problems they have, in hopes that you can mitigate these issues, and that can help you eliminate or at least dramatically reduce how often you have to spray. That is why I'm going through all the trouble of building the roof above my garden. I believe that if I put this roof above my plants and I can keep them dry, I will be able to maybe even stop spraying my plants with fungicides altogether. That's the real dream. But I'm also a realist that believes in not letting perfect be the enemy of good, so it's very likely that I still may have to spray something in my garden. However, I can at least dramatically reduce the frequency I have to spray, or maybe use something gentler. That's why I gave you all these different fungicide options. I want you to have all these tools in your arsenal, because if all I give you is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if you have issues with plant diseases, especially if you are north of me or west of me where it isn't quite as humid and wet, try one of the more gentle natural fungicides. Don't go straight to copper just because it's the strongest. Try the bacteria-based fungicide first, because that is the gentlest. If you find out that isn't quite strong enough, maybe try the sulfur first. You have to read up on how to use it, because you don't want to mix it with any oils or spray it in the sunlight and burn your plants, but it's a little bit more natural. And if all else fails and you have to use the copper, well, please make sure you read the instructions and use the correct concentrations and don't abuse the frequency. I just want to give you all the information that you can possibly have and let you know that spraying is okay, but only if you don't have a choice, because at the end of the day, if it comes down to not having a garden, it's better to spray something natural than to not have a garden at all. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring the notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. Again, for all of the products that I featured in this video, I will place direct links to all of them down in the video description. For everything else I use in real life in my garden, all of those things are linked in my Amazon storefront in the video description. So expand the video description, click on the Amazon storefront link, and you will see everything I use in real life. And while you're down there, please consider checking out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. If you have any questions, please ask them down in the comments section below. Please remember to spray responsibly, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
We are getting a nasty thunderstorm and have been all morning, and Dale is hiding in the closet. But I'm gonna draw him out by giving him a puppuccino. Do you want a puppuccino, Dale? Let's see if I can get him to come out. So we have about 1.5 ounces of milk, and then we'll add in just a pinch of cinnamon to give him a little bit of flavor. And then we're gonna spin the puppuccino. Come on, Dale, come get your puppuccino. Dale, come. Oh, he's coming. He's coming. He left the closet. Oh, we have a wonderful foam for our wonderful boy. I can't believe he came running. Dale, that's so good. It's so good that I can bribe you with food. Oh, very good, buddy. Okay, you can has. Thanks for joining us for a few minutes.